Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. So, Graham, you've been hinting at something you've been doing for the last, about a dozen podcasts.
Yeah.
Tell me what it is. Finally reveal the secret.
Well, the secret is that I've been working on a summit. Now, it's called the 2023 Alternative Investment Summit. And what it's all about is explaining to investors there are a number of alternative investment opportunities for them to look at, become aware of. And if they like, then the Summit software effectively connects them to those individuals. Now, there are 22 individual opportunities, and it's been an absolute, I don't know what, whirlwind, Kevin, of work over the last few months, getting all of this together. But I have had help, and I'm very happy to tell you about that.
Yeah, let's wind back a minute, Graham. A summit. What exactly is a summit?
Well, it's a bit like an online conference. So you basically would get to a web page, and on that web page, on a particular day, in this case, the first day of the summit is the 10th of July. That's the Monday, the 10th of July. And the summit lasts for 3 days. And what happens, you can sign up to the summit for free. Now, so you get free registration. Now, what that entitles you to is you see 22 different interviews, one with each of the guest speakers. And there are, on the first day, 7 of those. So 7 interviews on that first day. Now, basically, if you have time to go through them on that day, then that's fine. It's free. That's what the offer is. But after 24 hours, that first day, that page will be taken down. So if you didn't see it, you won't see it. So effectively, what happens then is the next day, on the Tuesday, 7 more interviews will go up. And then 24 hours later, they'll be taken down. And then on the third day, Wednesday, another, actually 8 interviews will go up, and they'll be taken down on the Thursday. But the thing is that if you go to the registration page, there's an opportunity for you to pick what they call an all access pass. Now, this is really a bit of an American term, but effectively what it means is that you can get into a private members area. So you'll be enabled to sort of see all of the interviews, all 22 interviews straight away. So if you bought the pass today, you don't have to wait until we're recording it in June. You don't have to wait until July to see the actual live summit dates, the free summit dates. So you can see all 22 interviews straight away. But more than that, you can see another 22. Now, they're the more in-depth, arguably slightly more interesting interviews. They're all good. But basically, what I ask my guest speakers to do in the second interview is to dig into a little bit more of the advanced stuff, show us a little bit more of the really interesting stuff that investors would want to know about. And actually, it reveals so much, Kevin. It's an amazing transformation.
The all access pass is the one that you want if you're serious about investing some money.
Yeah, what I've tried to do is not to make it silly. Typically, these conferences in the American-based versions of these, they're charging the region of about $97 for an all-access pass, which is, is fair enough if that's something you're interested in. But if you put that in English, that'd be about, 80 odd pounds. So basically, as opposed to doing that, I thought, well, let's try and keep it as low as possible. So before the summit, the price is £39 for an all-access pass. Now, that entitles you to that immediate, instant access to all of those 22 free interviews straight away, but the additional bonus interviews as well. And in addition to that, there are things like notes, the transcripts of all the interviews, because people do like to read. And there are also MP3s, or if you like Apple, then there are M4As of all of the all of the interviews. So you can actually, stick it onto your iPhone and just listen to them at your leisure. So those are available, not just immediately, but for the rest of 2023. So you don't have to rush through. You can actually take your time and actually consume everything. But that will be for £39. But here's the next part. That all access pass, it's the advice that I got was set it at one price before the event, one price during, and then one price after. So if somebody comes along after the event and said, "Oh, I heard you've done this, sir, this summit, really would like to have a look at it." Well, the only price they can pay is really, there isn't the free version then. The only way they can do that is by buying the all access pass at that moment. So the price before is £39, the price during is £49, and the price after is £59. So effectively that gets you access. So even at the after price, it's still kind of well below typical prices for this, because I really didn't want that to be the barrier. I wanted people to be able to come and actually consume what is a fascinating array of talent, Kevin.
Yeah, and that to me, Graham, is a lot of value for, say, that after price, even 59.
Yeah.
And you've got 22 people presenting their particular investment opportunity, 2 interviews with each. So let's say that you're interested in maybe only 2 or 3 of those.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to in-depth discussion about those products, start to understand quite a bit of what they're about for what is a very, very reasonable price.
Yeah, well, I think so. Yeah.
And go.
No, I was going to say, I think it is a reasonable price, because basically at the end of the day, one of the things that the research behind this, Kevin, was that my business, Finally Fettled, is all about high net worth individuals, is finding those. And, all kinds of people come to me and say, "Can you find me high net worth individuals that I can actually get my message across to them?" Yes. And I'm working with 2 or 3 people right now to do exactly that. But I figured that that's almost like customers coming to me and then we kind of putting our message out to them in that sense. So it's like broadcast. And what the summit was about really was to sort of turn that round, Kevin. It was to make it more about people coming to us, getting value. And if they then liked what they were hearing, and honestly, I can't recommend and I can't advise, but I can get enthusiastic about what the guest speakers are talking.
There are all those FCA rules.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're not a financial advisor, so all you can do is effectively be the ringmaster and coordinate all of this.
Which is exactly what I've done. I mean, you and I are both now veteran podcasters. There's a lot of podcasts out there, but you and I have been doing this for 7 years, and with your other podcast, you've done hundreds of those as well.
I should have celebrated the 500th podcast, but it's passed me by without ever noticing it. So I think I'm about 520 now.
No, you've done extremely well, and so and from that point of view, it's combining that interest you have in other people, which is the podcasting thing. So in my case, the summit was the ideal combination of, if you're effectively providing value to my audience, which are typically are investors, affluent, reasonably affluent, and effectively, and if they kind of like these ideas, then they can take it forward. And one of the key things with an alternative investment is it's not like traditional investments, the stocks and shares and bonds and so forth, that a lot of people will spend money on in the next year. So what an alternative is, and they're all typified by the kinds of things that we've got on the actual summit. Now, for instance, if you group them, there are kind of loosely 4 groups. The first group is property. And we've had people from this show, from the next 100 days, who actually are reappearing on the summit. Because, I mean, I know them. In some cases, I've worked with them. But they've got fantastic credibility. And so basically, one of them is Wakas Khan, who basically he did the distressed properties, and so getting a property in a right mess, then turning it into luxury apartments, etc., for people. Really, really interesting stuff. And that's not all that he does, but that's an example of some of the work that he does and his company does. So we talk about that. That's an example of property. Another property guy that we've had on the show, I don't know if you remember, but Dave Cookson came on to talk
about I remember Dave.
Low carbon construction. Now, what they're doing is they're trying to revolutionize the way in which affordable houses are being built. Now, is that an important thing for an investor to think about? Why would I want to know about that? Well, because they're in a pretty good position. Because a lot of the big builders, they might be mandated to do some effectively affordable housing, but they're not that good at it. So along come LCC and through Dave, and he tells his story about how they are proposing to change the market and serve not just that affordable building market, but to some of these other builders who frankly don't do it very well. So they've almost got a sort of an indirect market as well. So that's property. Then the next one is VCs. And on our show, you'll remember Keelan Doyle. And Keelan's been on our show a couple of times. And Keelan was talking about early stage B2B technology companies. Now, it's a must watch that. And
you're getting into my world there, Graham, because a lot of our members in Grow CFO turn out to be the CFOs of a lot of these early stage technology companies. Now, one thing that we put some predictions together at the beginning of this year.
Sure.
And one of the things that we identified with the changing financial markets is that the supply of capital getting limited. So there's a lot of folk in that B2B startup area looking for funding at the moment. So I can see from the company side why that's so important. And Dr. Keelan doing a great job then getting the other side of that right and finding the investors that want to put money in.
Yeah, I mean, in the tech area, there's so many different areas. It might be health tech or whatever, there's all kinds of different things. And but basically, Keelan's focus is business to business. So I am working with, say, technologies to do with, say, HR or whatever, or something that really is serving a company. So there are different opportunities. I think one of them is to do with keeping things safe. So that kind of in the Internet of Things, etc. So basically, there's a number of things that you'll learn from the conversation with Keelan. But another one, again from our podcast, was Nick Dimmock. Now, that Nick talked to us about environmental investment. I have to say, his conversation, Kevin, was just staggering. It was this idea of being able to create electricity from water. I think it's called low carbon catalytic fusion. I might have muffed the words. I probably did. But the point is, it's this approach that's been taken, and he'll tell you a story about a company that he's effectively promoting that have got the lead, that have really got the lead on this. So he goes into the detail that why people might be interested. And that's the second area, this sort of early stage. You call it venture capital if you want. And then basically the next one is collectibles. And, it wasn't that long ago that we had Dominic Brennan on talking about fine wine on our own podcast. Now, Dominic came back, and Dominic now has his own company. And he basically is talking to people about fine wine broking. So imagine that you're having a big do, Kevin, up in Northumberland, and you needed somebody to sort of recommend wine, etc. Part of his job is to work with people to do that. The other part is actually to manage investments into wine. And he's got some fascinating ideas about the way in which the wine market is going to go, and where you're best, shall we say, thinking about putting your money. But I would, and I guess, sorry, there is somebody else that I know that has been on the podcast. escapes me. 5 out of 6 isn't that bad, but we've got 6 there who've been on this podcast out of the 22 guest speakers. So a fascinating array, Kevin, of really, really interesting talent. Again, it's not that, by the way, come on to this and you've got to invest in it. You'll only invest in it if you like the whole idea, if it fits with your investment plan. Yeah. But the one thing that I would say to anyone thinking about investing in alternatives is, what happens to your portfolio if you don't take some action about, thinking about diversifying, having shall we say, a hedge against inflation? Now, if you have, for the sake of argument, Kevin, £100,000 in the bank at the beginning of January, how much, and you didn't spend a penny of it, what does the ledger say in December?
If it's a current account, it says 100,000.
It does. And how much do you think that? How much is that worth?
Might get to about 105 at the moment.
Well, okay. Let's just say that you don't get anywhere near that. But let's just say it's 103,000. Let's just say it's 103,000. But how much will inflation?
Well, inflation's only about 10%, so it's going to be worth 103. It's going to be worth 93, 94.
Yeah, probably a little bit less than that because of the phasing. But basically, you are right. The logic is that effectively your money looks like it's the same amount of money, more, possibly a little bit more, assuming they haven't touched it. But basically, the wealth that you've got has reduced. So what do you do about that? Well, in alternative investments, and this is where you have to be very careful, because we're not advising that you do this. We're not giving you advice. We're not telling you to do it. We're saying that don't risk anything that you can't afford to lose. But a lot of people do this, and there's this move towards alternative investments in the market. And, wealthier people tend to be much more comfortable with alternative investments. For instance, if you take gold, and we had Hamza on talking about gold and silver purchases, and you have to say you don't have to spend a fortune to get into that market, but he's got some very good strategies that he lays out. The company's called Minted. He's got some very good strategies to lay out so people can understand how to invest in gold and silver effectively. So it's if I said dollar cost averaging, you would probably understand that as a sort of an accountant and all the rest of that, and somebody who understands numbers. But it's a strategy that kind of is a really clever way of, if you like, fractionalizing your investment over a period of investments that enables you to sort of weather the ups and downs.
One podcast guest that I remember, Graham, we talked about fine art investing in one podcast. Is that part of the summit as well?
Well, we do have James Matthewson, who is talking about something called Pets Rock. Now, James hitherto hasn't been on our podcast, but I'm sure we'll invite him in the future. He's a fascinating guy. But there are some. What he's doing with Pets Rock is he's a combination of fine art and NFTs. Now, if I said to you, Kevin, do you know what an NFT is? You probably would, but a non-fungible something. And here I've forgotten it already, but basically NFT. But the whole idea of it is it's one of those. It's something that you can have on your phone. So you might have a piece of artwork on the phone. It's entirely for you. It's secured in the blockchain, and you can trade it. And actually other things that the way in which he's setting up the investment enable people to benefit from the market shifting upwards. So he's got a limited supply, and it's not endless, but there's enough for people to be thinking about. And these animals, they're like dogs and so forth, and cats, but they look like quite interesting people. One of them looks like Donald Trump. So you can imagine what that looks like. There's a bit of ginger on the top there, but basically it's all fascinating stuff. And James is such
Donald Trump's actually a ginger Tom.
Sorry again. Say again.
Donald Trump's actually a ginger Tom.
The beauty, I mean, there's all kinds of, I mean, there was Her Majesty the Queen. She was one of, although it wasn't Her Majesty the Queen, it was an animal with her, made to have her likeness in terms of the way it was dressed up and so forth. So and one of them looks a bit like Ziggy Stardust. So it's sort of, it's intellectually, from intellectual property wise, it's been ticked off, but basically you can tell it's derived a little bit from various artists, whether they're artists or whatever, or important politicians and stuff.
Yeah. So, Graham, you come along and either listen live or preferably, if you're really interested, it sounds to me that having the all access pass is a no-brainer because you want to get to that extra level of detail.
Yeah.
So suppose there are, at the end of going through this at the detail level, there are a couple of investments that you potentially want to go ahead with.
Mm-hmm.
Does the summit link you directly through to being able to invest?
It does, yeah. And that's exactly, and it couldn't be easier. So basically, let's just say instead of you rooting around and trying to figure out who this person is, etc., and getting lost, you basically just click a button and put your name and email in there, and I think a telephone number, and that's you done. So effectively, then you'll be contacted by, if it was Pets Rock or whatever, it'd be James Matthewson who'd get in touch. So effectively, the whole idea of it's like a hotline. It's like a red telephone on the desk, and effectively you're just getting straight through to them. So the summit itself has, yes, that's effectively a small income from the purchase of the all access pass. And to be honest with you, if thousands of people sign up, then it's a reasonably big income. But at the end of the day, it wasn't done for that purpose. The main purpose was that I've got to say that it was the frustration I felt of marketing to affluent individuals and being one of a number, of being one of a baying crowd. And I really wanted to sort of get together some really, really interesting people who've got great opportunities. And they understand this. Many of them are FCA regulated themselves. So they're presenting their stories in such a way that it's completely compliant. And so the whole idea of this is that we're bringing people in for them to be able to share their stories. So whether you're FCA compliant or not, the big problem many of these people have is actually the awareness of people around them who they can do deals with.
Yeah.
So often they don't know.
Let's face it, normal person coming to you, great, you've got a fantastic list of people. But at the moment that they want to put their offer out, that's got to be landing on the, I was going to say on the doormat, but on the virtual doormat, as it were, of somebody who is actually ready to invest. Now, you as an investor have probably got a portfolio which is already invested.
Yeah.
So you will be looking for those individuals that are at the right time to move money from investment A to investment B. Maybe investment A is matured or whatever. Yeah. So you're direct marketing to them, and there's a huge element of not just A, the person being interested, but B, the person being ready to invest.
Yes.
The interesting thing here is you put an event on. People can come along and look at things. They see 20 odd possibilities, and it could be in the back of somebody's mind that says, I've got an investment that's maturing in 6 months' time. What am I going to do with that money? Oh, I like the idea of that one. I like the idea of that one. I like the idea of that one. So they then start investigating. And as the money then matures and they're ready to reinvest, then they become that prime, effectively, customer of Finely Fettled, that they are interested and ready to buy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Kevin. I mean, at the end of the day, what I then do with their interest is simply pass that information across to the interest that they have.
Yeah.
And because that means that that we've provided some real value to them in advance. There's been no pressure. It's just a conversation a bit like this. And effectively we basically say, look, if you're interested in this, and it might be Christopher and Samuel. Technically, there are 23 people that you can see on the thing, but it's 22 opportunities because Chris and Samuel are both parts of a film, and it's called The Ghost of Harold Wilson. And those guys approached me a few months ago, and basically I said, look, hey, why don't you come and join us on the summit? And they're fascinating. They're young men. But what they don't know about film isn't worth knowing. Yeah, I mean, and the connections. More to the point, this film that they're producing has a real chance. There's very, very few films of stature that basically have a good cast, but also about leading politicians, etc. And that kind of scenario that fail.
Yeah,
in fact, they were explaining that none have. They've all made money. Now, there's a little story about the actor who's actually acting in. He'll be like me, a little bit too young to have ever voted for Harold Wilson. But basically, not that you would, but basically you might have done. But basically, Harold Wilson is being played by and portrayed by Sean Dooley. Now, I'll put a sort of picture of them in the show notes, and you'll see that they've never been seen in the same room together. I mean, they'd look just alike. So when Sean was and they got access to the chamber of the House of Commons, and effectively to do some of the shooting there. And Christopher, who's on the podcast, he has worked in that sort of realm, shall we say, and he managed to wrangle his way into this into the chamber. So they actually filmed in the House of Commons. So Sean was dressed up in his Harold Wilson gear. And there was an old guy who used to be, I don't know, maybe in his 70s, but still kicking about. I don't know what he did in the House of Commons, etc. But he was obviously hanging around doing various things. And he had to apologise to Sean. He said, "Look, I'm sorry I've been staring at you, but you look just like Harold Wilson," and he does. It's an amazing likeness. And you know, if Oscars were going to be won just for the likeness of the character, then it definitely win an Oscar for that. But more about that film on the summit. But I've remembered the last of the 6 who've been on our podcast.
Yeah,
and he's a fascinating guy, and it's called Matt Putner.
Oh, foreign exchange.
Now, Matt,
I was fascinated by that podcast that we recorded with Mark. Yeah.
Well, Matt, he basically he doesn't really advertise. So coming onto the podcast is because everything that he does is through referral. He finds it easier that way because basically, you know, if they look like the friends that he's already dealing with, then he's got the kind of cohort that he's happy with. So effectively, and you've got to have a certain mentality about it, because the thing about foreign exchange trading, first of all, it's hands off. His methodology is hands off. But basically, you've got to have the stomach for, you know, ups and downs. But nonetheless, he came along and talked to us about his AI powered foreign exchange trading bots, robots, etc. And effectively, they do the trading for you. So you put some money into an account, and then the AI bot trades between a euro and a dollar. So there's lots of different trades going on between those two currencies, and they basically do lots of minute trades throughout a period, and they they basically invest up to around, I think the maximum that they've done in any point in any year was 14%. So in other words, if you've got £100,000, not that that's the right number, it's usually a lot less than that, then it'd be 14,000. So basically, the whole of your asset or the whole of your investment isn't bet in any particular trade. But the thing is with that type of investment is that the risks are high. All of the investments that we're featuring are to some degree high risk. And so therefore, some possibly higher than others. But Matt's got this thing going on. Is basically, and if you tune into the summit, you'll basically hear of one of his products is making roughly around 4% per month. Now you think, well, hold on a minute, that does sound really good. When you start thinking about that level of return, almost 50% in a year, that is wow territory. Now he also, he goes a lot more than that with one of his he goes into a lot more detail about his platform in the second of the two interviews, and anybody that gets into that will find a very, very interesting study. And the whole idea is that it basically goes into the detail of what happens and why and so forth, and all the legal stuff. And so you'll find that there's a lot of detail in there for an investor to sort of go from zero to I know enough to want to have a conversation, and that's it. That's the top and bottom of this. And often, if somebody just like me working with a client saying, "Hey, have a look at my stuff," there's almost like a wall that goes up inevitably because we're all busy doing other things.
Yeah.
So if they get the message, hopefully, that this opportunity will enable you to learn at your pace for, frankly, less than 40 quid, that enables you to actually experience all of this stuff, that enables you then to say, well, maybe I should have this investment. One of the people on the show is Sam Roberts. And when I say investment, a lot of people would, I don't know, have you ever dabbled in cryptocurrency, Kevin?
I have never dabbled in cryptocurrency. I must confess, cryptocurrency is one of those things that I still regard as a dark art.
Yes, I'm like you. However, when you're in the hands of Sam Roberts, and Sam he's only a young man, but basically he had a number of he won lots of prizes on TV. Just about, he's been on every TV quiz show. He's got an amazing brain, and he just retains things. If you're ever doing a pub quiz, Sam Roberts, because you'll win. So basically, but the thing is, what Sam does is he goes into a great deal of research, and he also pays for a great deal of research about cryptocurrency that you and I would never do in a month of Sundays. So what he does is he stewards his clients' investments. So in that sense, he's a manager of their investments in this cryptocurrency field, as opposed to you dabbling in the latest altcoin. And he most often tells people not to do that. Or he explains some of the mathematics and some of the logic behind, no, keep your position, don't sell your position. So there are some very, very astute observations that he brings to his clients. So that's just another example of
cryptocurrency. It's a lot like dabbling in stocks and shares. They go up and they go down. My only indirect experience is one of my grandsons got some cryptocurrency from his uncle as his christening present.
Right.
And we've watched it ever since, and all it's done is go down.
Yes, and it's so sad, isn't it? And depends on if it's Bitcoin, then it kind of got up to, I don't know, the 80,000 or whatever, and it fell down as far as the 16,000, and around the 16,000, Sam tells a story that he was advising people to buy, but it's like sometimes, no, I don't want to buy. I don't, 15, 16,000, it could go even further, and it could. But the research, etc., said that, and of course, where is it now? It's, I don't know, mid-30s somewhere, possibly even higher. I haven't looked at the numbers myself, but in other words, doubled the value of the 16,000. But that's Bitcoin. Now, if you go into other altcoins, then they can be just amazingly go off the charts in terms of the success. More often, though, they dive like Tom Daly off a very high board. So basically, it's one of those things that you have to be very, and that's why you want a man.
Exactly.
You want to say a man, you mean a collective person who understands the
we're
thing.
Talking here about the summit.
Yeah.
But we're not giving anybody any advice.
No.
What you're doing on the summit, Graham, is coordinating, pulling together these 22 separate interviews, not giving any advice.
No, because it's, I mean, for that to happen, I'd have to sit down with you as an individual, and this is one to many in a sense, because this is, as an individual, I'd have to sit down and say, this is really, really good. You've got to do this rather. That's definitely not in my mind. It's not what the thing's about. The whole idea of it is to showcase what's there. Why? Because the whole alternative investment market is growing. And so, where do people look to get that information? Well, they can find a lot of it here.
I'm not aware of any single place to go to find out about the whole range of alternative investments that are available. I know about a few of them. And mainly the reason I know about them is because of you, and because we've had one or two of these folk that we've mentioned as guests on this podcast.
Yes.
But that's only a very small cross-section. And I imagine even at 22 people appearing in the summit, Graham, we're still only touching a very small section of what's out there.
Yeah, I wanted to try and cover as many of the main areas like property, VC, they call it collectibles, but within that sort of banner of collectibles, you do have things like fine wine. We've got whiskey casks as well. That kind of idea. That's a fascinating area as well.
Yeah, we did a podcast about that, didn't we?
Oh, do you know what? Sometimes, Kevin, we've done so many podcasts that, the grey matter gets in the way, and I keep forgetting what we've done. But the truth of the matter is we do cover whiskey as part and parcel of the opportunities to invest, because it is really quite interesting. And often, it's just regular people. And that's the whole idea. I want to get these messages across to regular people who might have a bit of money and are either high net worth individuals, affluent, sophisticated investors who basically can pass through the gateway into these investments legitimately. Some of them are not FCA authorized. Your money there, is at risk. You've got to be aware of that, and there are compliance notices within the videos, with also on the website, etc. But I like to treat people as adults, and as long as you understand that, and if you want that information for you to make a sensible decision about your portfolio, because Kevin, if you were to invest in, I don't know, one of Keelan's B2B businesses, and he did in the second interview go into one or two of the areas where he would be, particularly interested in, he thinks they've got a really, really good chance, then, and you didn't just get a sort of like, 10% return or whatever it is, which would be very good, but you got the traditional kind of 3 to 4 to 65% times results. So then you've got a really, really big incentive. There's no guarantee you're going to get any of that, but the kind of fundamental, this is what these guys are good at. They pick the occasional, very occasional in some cases, winner. And, I can't be an expert at everything, Kevin, nor can you. We've interviewed enough people on this podcast to realize we'll never be experts at everything. So the whole idea of this is to bring as many of these people as I can together in that one summit, and allow them to almost like share in a really hopefully open, positive way the things that they are going to offer.
Graham, sounds absolutely fantastic. It sounds like a piece of information that's very, very worth having if you want to invest.
Yeah.
And let's face it, we've seen over the past years, money in a bank makes hardly any money at all. And the capital sum you're investing loses, whatever the rate of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
It will always lose. You will always earn less interest than the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
I suppose it's a possibility the way the economy is going at the moment that might change, the way interest rates are going up. But hey ho, it'll only be for a short period of time.
Well, interest rates are going up, but if you've got a mortgage, that's not good news. No. So, at the end of the day, I'm not an expert at these things. You and I have spoken to quite a few on this podcast. The summit is all about things like diversification. A lot of these people believe in diversification. I think I used the term fractal diversification. So in other words, you diversify into, for instance, if I went into property, I'd be diversifying because I don't have property in my portfolio, right? Just don't. Now, some people do, I don't. So if I went into property, I'd be diversifying. But within the property realm, if you like, you can then diversify. Because if I was to go with a managed property bond from HJ Collection, who are on the podcast, and this is a guy called Luke, basically that would be one way of investing some of the money that I have. Or you might go with, say, Jason Living, who is a bit like Sam Roberts, and he helps you manage your investments in property. Or you might choose Jatin Ondia, who basically has an investment platform. And so, a property investment platform where you can co-invest with others into some very, very big opportunities. And we have another platform similarly, like a crowdfunding type platform with Atuksha Poonwasi as well. And her contribution is to tell us about that. There's similar platforms in some ways. The point is, there's so many different property opportunities that you're almost like diversifying within a diversification strategy. So a fractal one, if you like, so you almost like diversify and then diversify again. So it's, this, and if you come to fine wine, there's champagne, there's, Burgundy, there's Bordeaux. There's all kinds of different areas in which you wouldn't just put your hat on one thing and forget the rest. So there's a lot of strategy involved in the conversations that you can have with these individuals. I think, what you said just a few minutes ago, Kevin, if you're looking to invest, I would join the summit, whether or not you're looking to invest. If you are, then it's a great place to go. But if you're not, then it's a great place to go to learn about the opportunities that might be there for you, rather than leaving your funds with other people to, at the end of the day, what happens to stocks and shares? Every now and again, there's a very, very big reverse. And, what if one's coming later on in this year? How could you potentially protect against that? So when there are some very, very big turbulations, if you like, that's such a word, ups and downs within markets, what can you do to protect yourself? One of those things might be gold. One of them, might be some of the other opportunities that we talk about here, whether that's a film or whether that's Vivi, the super vegan, which is a character set. And, so if you're interested in sort of ethical characters, for children and so forth, but maybe potentially with licensable opportunities with that whole range of vegan food, then these guys have potentially got a very bright future. So, it's one of those things. Yeah. Listen to what they have to say. Look at the more in-depth things that they have to say. If you're still interested, then hit the button. You haven't bought anything. You're just lining yourself up for a little bit more information. So it's a continuum. So that's the summit, Kevin. It's I hope you found this is I'm trying not to. I'm very enthusiastic about all of them. I really am. And if I've missed any of the guys on the summit, it's not because
you're going to be enthusiastic, Graham, because you've invested the last 3 or 4 months of your life getting this off the ground.
Yeah, and sometimes it's been quite challenging, but technically as well, Kevin. I have had some support from hopefully a future guest and one of the world's leading experts on designing summits, and that's Bailey Richard, who's basically, I don't know, she's young enough to be my daughter, but she's mid-30s, and a lovely, lovely lady. And basically she's helped from afar. She's based in America, and she's basically helped. We use an app called Voxer, and, you know, I'll say, hey, Bailey, I'm like stuck, or I've been thinking about this. And usually within, you know, a few minutes, actually, with Bailey, she's absolutely amazing. She comes back and says, well, this is how I do it. And you can leave a voice message or, you know, type or whatever. And it really is. I mean, this is probably not news to a lot of people, but, you know, to somebody of my age, you know, all of a sudden I'm learning about Voxer. I'm learning about ClickFunnels. I'm learning about summits. I'm learning about, you know, how to host a video, you know, in Vimeo, which you think, well, that'd be simple, wouldn't it? Right. Okay. How do you put that video together, particularly if you want to stop the end bit and go into all the other videos that you've been watching about Leeds United or something like that, or silly cats or something. So at the end of your video, you don't want that to happen. You don't want them to see all the stuff. What you want to see is, well, what you'll see on the actual video itself, which is nothing. And so you have to set your videos up in a particular way. You know, and you then have to effectively set up things like Stripe, and to enable the money part of it to work. So it's Kevin, it's been an absolute revelation, and I've often thought I need about another 2 people to help me, but you know, you just have to keep going at it. And the last thing, and some of the advertising that you may well see around the time of this release of the video. Release of the podcast is some work from a young lady called Anna, or Anastasia, and she's based in Ukraine, and I've invited her to be a guest here on the podcast at a future time. And I think what's interesting about her is that, you know, she's going through this period where a country's at war, yet she's still working very, very hard, incredibly hard. I mean, in her time around 12 o'clock at night, I literally had to send a message saying, go to bed, because she was just working through to get everything sorted out. And I think actually she fell at one stage, she fell asleep at a computer, which just the amazing talent that some of these people have, but also the willingness to go through and go through the extra mile. So yeah, I mean, I've been supported, but
I've seen some fantastic artwork coming out.
She's responsible for it. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a little bit of me in it, but most of it is her. And so, and I think, you know, from my point of view, yeah, hopefully it grabs people's attention, and then they'll go and register for free.
But Graham, how does somebody go and register for the summit?
Well, on the show notes, you'll find a link. But if you can remember this, you just go to HTTPS, whatever it is, and all that kind of stuff, www.thealternativeinvestmentsummit.co.uk. So thealternativeinvestmentsummit.co.uk. You go there, you're on the registration page, and it just there's a little video of me, but basically just hit the free register, and you'll just put your email and your name in there, and that's you done.
More videos of you, Graham, the man with the face made for radio.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I did actually research some AI, you know, where you have the, you know, instead of my face, you'd have a younger man or even a female. I'm not sure that you could actually give your voice to somebody else who's better looking than you, you know, maybe a different skin color, you know, the whole idea. But basically, they come across in a better way. But I just thought, oh, no, just stick with me. And it was just a lot easier to do that. But I just, there was just too many things to learn. But yeah, would I have done that? Yeah, I think I probably would.
So this is the Alternative Investment Summit 2023.
Yeah, I mean,
$1 million question, Graham. Is there
yeah.
going to be an Alternative Investment Summit 2024?
Depending on how successful it is, there might be another one in 2023. But I mean, having said that, I think it's more likely that we'll roll it into next year. But I mean, I think the way in which this works, Kevin, is that the way in which summits work. For instance, it suits us, and I have thought about this, and it wouldn't be beyond us to sort of do this. But if we were to look at any topic that we cover on a regular basis, maybe the corporate escape thing, and we put together 20 guests or 30 guests, let's say, about different areas. So what to do with your CV, all that kind of stuff. So basically your mindset, setting up a business, all that kind of stuff. If you were to put that together, it wouldn't be difficult. Well, obviously it wouldn't be difficult. It would be a lot easier certainly for me right now, because all the stuff's there. So it's basically the process is there. It would be about recording the interviews and getting some of the other stuff done, etc. But effectively, it could be a really, really interesting summit for people to attend, because a lot of our audience have come from corporate and have started their own businesses, so it'd be quite interesting.
I think there's big scope to put something together like that. Maybe we ought to have a chat, Graham, and see if there's an opportunity. I quite like the idea of the Corporate Escape Summit. Well,
we do chat at least once a week, so basically I think there's every chance that we can do it. But right now I'm focused on the Alternative Investment Summit, and I think once that's done, and it probably won't be done for a while yet, because I'm right in the middle of the promotional period, and I know that later this morning I'm talking to people who are going to be acting as what they call affiliates. So all those things that I talked about, the All Access Pass, there are affiliate commissions that basically people can earn just by introducing the whole idea of the summit to their own audiences. So, so for instance, they would actually say, oh, well, go to this, if you're looking to improve the performance of your investment portfolio in a sort of a non-threatening, a kind of an educational way that helps you understand the range of or a range of alternative investments, go here. And if they do, and then they subsequently buy the All Access Pass, then there's a shared income there. So it's an opportunity, and so people with lists are talking to me about doing that.
Brilliant. Graham, I'm really excited for you doing this. I think it's a super idea. I can see that you're really excited. I love how you've learnt about so much over the last 3 or 4 months in putting this together. Mm-hmm. And you've certainly proved that it's possible to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, I don't know about there have been some sacrifices, certainly in the last month or so. I've talked in the past that I do 10,000 steps a day and stuff like that, and that's been sacrificed because I've been so utterly busy, from morning to night and weekends and so forth. So basically, it's been quite challenging from that point of view. But before long, that'll start again, and then basically I'll be able to because I don't know about you, Kevin, but I do enjoy the open air and getting some miles into my legs. But at the end of the day, something had to go because there was literally just so much to do. But yeah, I mean, the old dog has been taught a few things.
Brilliant. Graham, thank you for being this week's guest on the Next 100 Days podcast.
Well, yeah, and at this moment, I'd normally give ourselves a testimonial, but I'd be lying, wouldn't I? No, I really.
Graham, what was it like being a guest on the Next 100 Days podcast?
It was. Yeah, I'm going to cut this bit out anyway, but no, seriously. It was good. I mean, first of all, it's the first time I've done it in this office where I've got the blue background, because people, if they go onto the summit, you'll see me in this chair sort of thing. So I've really enjoyed it. It enabled me to talk more about what I do and what I do in my regularly, rather than the focus being on the guest sort of thing, which it should be, because if you're doing a podcast, the hero or heroine should be the person you're speaking to. But on this occasion,
it's you.
It's, well, I mean, I don't know about being a hero, but at the end of the day, it was a chance for us to sort of discuss and talk
Graham,
about.
I definitely want to get into the podcast that's not talking specifically about this summit, but it's the podcast that's talking about how would you go about putting a summit together.
Oh, very happy to do that. I mean, there's I hinted at some of the things, but yeah, there are some cardinal things that you can get wrong, and people do get wrong, and I'm sure I've got wrong. But you know, the truth is, it's it's the first time, and so hopefully people will get a lot of value out of it. And so, you know, if you can come along and sign up, look, sign up's for free. You know, at the end of the day, you get to watch 22 free interviews.
Yeah.
If you're around 10th, 11th, and 12th of July. If you want to watch them at your own leisure, well, you know what to do. You can buy the all access pass. And, you know, and if you want sort of a summary of the notes, then there is the opportunity to buy an executive summary of notes. So in other words, just give me the brief, you know? So basically there are some bullet points that say, well, that's what this is about. These are the key points from that particular interview. People want that. They don't have time, etc., to go through transcripts and so forth. Just give me the stuff that's really going to summarize it. And that's what you get as well from that. And then, of course, as an upsell, as they call it, we have an investor course. So if for those people who want to do that, that's a little bit more expensive, but it's one it's got videos, it's run by industry experts. There's a little bit of a tie-in branding to the summit. And so if you basically want to get that, then typically the actual investor course itself would be around £500, but we're actually putting it to our people £199. So effectively, it's a great value option as well. But that's an upsell. So yeah, I mean, it's a
very interesting, of course.
Very much. Yeah, I mean, it's actually come from an FCA regulated entity who I'm not going to mention who it is, but it's somebody on the put it this way, somebody I've mentioned, but somebody on the summit. But we got talking, and well, we got this. Oh, that's great then. And so we'll offer that because I wanted the next step. So when you start thinking about these things, you have to always figure out what do you want people to do next, and that's really important. So that's why we're doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just to go back, I appreciate being on this podcast. I appreciate what this podcast means to both of us. Today, well, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.